Good evening. Welcome to tonight's Table Talk with Parents. My name is Alicia Newell, and I serve as the Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs at Wichita State. And yes, I am in full mom mode today. I am in my car, so commitment here, folks. Commitment. Tonight's topic, we are talking about accommodations, specifically regarding our students with disabilities, and making sure that we are assisting them in having a smooth transition to college. In addition, support. And so, with us this evening, we have the expert, I was going to say Dr. Isabel Medina Kaiser. I just upgraded her. And so Isabel, she serves as our director for the Office of Disability. And then, of course, you all know my girl, Kim Sandlin, with the Office of Student Success. And so for those of you who have not joined us, who this may be your first time, I am a proud alum of the university. I have been at Wichita State going on 15 plus years now. And so it's a true passion just to be able to walk along with your students in this journey. And so in my role, I get to assist students, meet them where they're at and help get them to where they need to be. And so definitely excited to welcome your students to campus. Next, I'll go ahead and have Kim Sandlin introduce herself, and then we will kick it off with Isabel.
All right. Hi, everyone. Glad you are all with us this evening. As Alicia said, my name is Kim Sandlin. I'm the Director of Student Success here, also an alum of the university. Alicia and I were both first generation students as well here, had a great experience, and both have the opportunity and privilege to serve our students and give back to this great place that we call home, right? So we're glad you are with us this evening. I think at the last count, Alicia, we had something like 40 some years experience between us when you add it all up together on campus. So we've been around the block a few times, have a lot of experiences here, both personally as students and professionally. But tonight's not about us. It is about you and your students. And want to bring in Isabel Medina Kaiser, who is our Director in Disability Services, to talk through that transition for your students and what that may look like. So Isabel, take it away.
All righty. Thank you. First and foremost, I want to applaud our parents. You've got your kid through high school and now they're coming into college. And that's not an easy feat, especially when you have a student that has a disability, because you usually have been at the IEP meetings, everything that you needed to do, you were the bulldog. Alicia will let you know that I'm kind of the bulldog. So I'm kind of the parent that was going to the IEPs. So I'm here to make sure that you all, that our students get their accommodations. And if you could, go ahead and put up the PowerPoint just so I can go and show some of the stuff. So accommodations at WSU, I have been the Director of Disability Services here for about 2 years. Prior to that, I was at another larger university, did the same thing, and then I was at a smaller university, a Hispanic Serving Institute, and worked with accommodations for faculty, staff, and students. So I have experience on how to help with our students so that they know what kind of accommodations that are going to be needed when they're in a place of work. So next slide, please. So disabilities. It's basically, according to Center of Disease Control, about 61 million adults, or 26% of adults in the United States, have some type of a disability. It is the nation's largest minority, and a minority that you can join at any moment. I could have been walking down the sidewalk this morning, tripped, fell, hit my head, get a traumatic brain injury. I could have gone to my doctor and found out that maybe I have diabetes, or it could be the fact that I'm dyslexic and have been dyslexic my entire life. And so I know a lot about learning disabilities. So again, you have about a 20% chance of becoming disabled at any point in time of your life. And so again, that can happen with your students that may not have had an IP. Or for a lot of our students, the disability really doesn't come up until they start college and then realize, oh my God, I have to read 3 books for one class And I've only read like usually one book for one class. And so sometimes those disabilities will kick up. Next slide, please. Again, who is disabled, basically? It is a person or an individual who has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits their major life activity, has a record of such a disability, or is regarded as having a disability. The life activities are not limited to learning, working, walking, breathing, hearing, and seeing, in addition to many other physical or sensory functions. Again, that makes that individual qualified as being a person that is disabled, and so accommodations will be put in place to address his or her specific needs. Next slide, please. So who determines this? It's basically our office. We're under Student Affairs. We are the ones that set the standard and determine what is reasonable accommodations to meet the student's needs. Again, the process first starts with making sure that we get documentation, and it has to be professional documentation, has to describe the functional limits of the student and the manner in which disability issue will be addressed. Again, the purpose of the accommodation is to have equal access to programs and services while again preserving academic standards. Next slide, please. So this is basically the accommodation process. And for you parents that were part of IEPs, 504s, you were kind of the person that was driving all this. And then everybody and their mother knew about the accommodations and probably about the disability. In college, it's different. It is completely student-driven, and we'll talk about confidentiality in a couple of slides. So basically what the student does is jumps onto our website, and if you could put our website up there, Annie, that would be great. There you go. And so they jump into our website, start the intake process, which is on this slide. And again, if you are interested, we can always send this information to you if you're interested via email. So then the student downloads the documentation of the disability to the intake form. And then a Zoom or a face-to-face meeting would be scheduled with the student. And then our intake specialist will have that interactive meeting with the student to discuss possible accommodations. And then once accommodations are set, a copy of the accommodations are emailed to the student and to the professor. This letter is produced through a program called Maxient, and so the word Maxient will be in the subject of all those emails. The student is encouraged to contact the professor to discuss how the accommodations will be implemented, not whether or not they're going to get the accommodations, but how will it be implemented. Best practice is for the professor to contact that student to talk about the accommodations. And if the student hasn't contacted the professor, we are encouraging that professor to let us know so we can talk to the student to find out, hey, what's going on? Let's get your accommodations moving. Also, that basically, if there's any questions, you can email us at disability.service@wichita.edu. And when the student's coming in for the second semester, if they're wanting accommodations, they will have to fill out the continued service form in order to be able to get the accommodations for the next semester. Next slide, please. Confidential, oops, one more back. So confidential information is definitely what is kind of different than what it was in K through 12, because pretty much almost everybody was involved. In this sense, again, the accommodation letter does not state the disability. It only states that the accommodations are. If that student chooses to reveal their disability to the professor or to anybody else, that's up to them. The information as far as their disability is not in any, it's not going to be in their transcript. It's not going to say, hey, student got a degree but got accommodations. It's not going to be in there. But as a parent, you're probably going to be very interested on what's happening with the accommodations. So what you can do is, when we send this to you, if you're interested, is the release form. And the release form basically is a form that the student has to sign and fill out and send to our office, stating that they want you to be able to have contact with us. If you contact our office, we really cannot get into details of what's going on with the student. But again, the student can fill that release form and we can have some open conversations. And I really encourage for you all to connect with us. You are our eyes and ears, so are we. And so it would be wonderful to develop that relationship so that we can, again, encourage the student to succeed. Next slide, please. So these are some of the learning disabilities that we work with. So it could be everything from dyscalculia, dyslexia, long-term retrieval disorders, spelling disorders, writing disorders. Next slide, please. Medical issues, it could be temporary arm or foot injuries, it could be cancer, cerebral palsy, diabetes, migraines, MS, MD, quadriplegia, thyroid disease, you name it. Under the medical, we help with accommodations. Next slide, please. Psychological disabilities. That is an area that has been increasing, not just for this university, but for every university. And again, it can be things like ADD, ADHD, anxiety disorders, autism spectrum disorder, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, TBI, any of those kinds of issues. Again, there are accommodations for students with that have psychological issues. So definitely encourage our students to connect with us early. If they choose not to use the accommodations, that's up to them, but at least have them get the documentation to us. So at least we have that first step finished so that we can, again, kick in the accommodations as soon as we possibly can. Next slide, please. We also work with students with hearing or speaking or seeing issues. So students that are deaf or hard of hearing, students with speech issues, especially if they have concerns about doing presentations, we can do accommodations that make it a little less intense. Students with vision, so it could be a student that is blind or lower vision. So again, we are here for our students to provide them as many accommodations as we can, as long as it's reasonable. Next slide, please. Testing accommodations. So it could be anything from extended time on testing, a quiet place to take the test, maybe rest breaks during an exam, use of a computer, use of a calculator, maybe flexibility with exams and due dates, especially if there's medical issues. And our accommodated testing is done through the WSU testing services. And so the next slide, please. This is the WSU testing service program. It's in the same building as ours. It's just one floor up, so very close. And basically what happens is that the student has the conversation with the professor about getting the test over to the testing services. Student has to fill out certain forms, has to schedule online under registrarblast.com, WSU. And so again, it's really, I can't emphasize more that it is student driven. So students really need to learn how to transition to taking the initiative to follow through with their accommodations, meeting with us, and setting their tests at the testing services. Next slide, please. So there could be other classroom accommodations. It could be use of a sign language person. It could be note taking. We actually have a product that's called, it's a smart pen, and what it does, it's amazing. It records what the student is listening to in the classroom, but it also records what the student is writing. So then the student can go back to their dorm or back home, pull that back up, get to hear what they were hearing in the class, see what their notes was basically saying. And it's very beneficial for students who may have focus issues or a student who has traumatic brain injury. It helps because then they can, in case they miss something in the classroom, they'll be able to catch up with it. Plus, they're also learning how to take notes, which is really an important skill to develop. We have different possibilities of reserved seating, flexibility with attendance, and again, that's mostly in the medical areas. It could be that maybe they need accessible text, Braille, things like that. We also talk about emergency evacuation assistance. It's very important that our students with disabilities know what is going to happen in an emergency. So that is something that we are constantly working on and will continue to work on till I'm not here, because it's, again, an area that I am very concerned with. Next slide, please. So some of these are academic and yet non-academic accommodations. It could be priority class registration, could be reduced course load. Again, if they're on scholarship, there's ways that we can possibly help with that. Emergency evacuation, as we stated before. Housing accommodations. So if your student is needing housing accommodations, please contact us. The other thing is emotional support animals. That's another thing that we work with as far as accommodations. We also provide golf cart rides for students with medical issues that have maybe mobility issues to be able to get around campus, and walking escorts, especially if it's a student who is blind and they need to kind of figure out the orientation of the campus. So those are some of the things that we can help that are quote unquote non-academic. Next slide, please. So I just want to talk really fast, and I've already been talking pretty fast, about accommodations for practicums and internships. It's different in classroom work. You know, you usually get, you're just yourself and the professor, but when you're in a practicum or a clinical, you have to work with others. When you're taking classes, you might be able to just work in a quiet library, but when you're in a practicum or internship, you may have to be dealing with ringing phones, people coming in, those kinds of things. Again, you may have gotten extra time on papers and projects. It may look different as far as for practicums and internships. So if your student is going to be going into any practicum or internship or clinics, please have them connect with us. What I'm trying to do is get them prepared for the, as my students say, the real world, to make sure that they are going to get accommodations in their workplaces. Next slide, please. So these are some self-accommodations that students can do. They don't have to do the formal or informal way of asking for accommodations. So it could be, you know, breaking, you know, lengthy tasks into short work periods. It could be, you know, decreasing stress, maybe showing up an hour earlier or working later. Some of the things that we've learned ourselves as people that are working, just, you know, am I a morning person, am I an afternoon person? And again, not beating up yourself. That's the one thing I've seen for my students, is that we don't have to get on them. They already know what they're not doing, and they're already, in a sense, beating themselves up for that. So shame comes in, and then when shame comes in, everything stops. So again, if you're hearing or seeing anything with your student where that's coming up, please let us know so that we can, again, connect the student with other programs, give them support that we can provide. Care team, I'm on the care team, so again, that's a great program. Kim's program is great too, because they have, you know, success coaches and people to help students. So definitely make sure that our students know what is out there for them, because this is one university, and I've been to about 3 other universities, and this college cares. It really does. And they do their best to give as much supports to the students. But more importantly, the students need to use those services. It's so important for them to do that. Next slide, please. So there's informal accommodations in a work situation or within a practicum, but I really don't suggest that, because we really need to make sure that the communication is there between the professors and the students, and we want to ensure that the student is receiving their accommodations. So I suggest the next slide. Next slide, yay. So formal accommodations. So we would get involved in that. So we would look to see what type of accommodations are going to be needed. We would have already the documentation. These are just some of the things that might come up, is like, how, you know, does your limitations impact your ability to perform the essential functions of your position? It could be, next slide, please. It could be explaining how the accommodations that you're requesting is going to enable you to perform the essential functions of your job, or in this sense of the clinic. So we get really involved when we're getting into these formal accommodations. We visit the site, we meet with the persons that are going to be supervising the student within the practicum. And it's really important, again, like I said, it is important that our students know that they can get accommodations from when they're in kindergarten all the way until PhD, that they can get accommodations for their job. It's just really important. If you ever have any questions about what kind of accommodations you can get or your student can get in their job area, please pull up Job Accommodation Network. http://askjan.org/. And it's just a wonderful site to be able to pull up. That gives students hope, because a lot of our students are afraid that, oh my God, where's my accommodations going to go when I go into the workplace? So let them know that there is accommodations that would be provided to them. Next slide, please. Again, as I said, looking at the structure and the environment, communicating with the student, doing some job training, supervision, some job coaching. Those are the things that are really important in practicums for students with disabilities. Next slide, please. This is kind of my summary. Accommodations are an interactive process most of the time. When I said I become the bulldog, when it doesn't work, that's when I become the bulldog. With faculty, they are the ones that are teaching the classes. They bring to the table the knowledge of the course requirements, the content and methods. Our office, Disability Services, we've been provided documentation of the disability. We have an understanding of what the accommodations that would be appropriate and what functional impairments are caused by that disability. Your students, they have an understanding of their disability and how it impacts their learning. For the rest of the summer, please have your students review their IEP, review their 504, be able to have them explain how things limit them. It's something they're going to have to learn. It's part of the transition. And with a funny note, please teach them how to wash clothes. I had a student one time, and the parents called me because the student was just maxing out the MasterCard and Walmart card and wanted me to see what was going on. And again, I was scared, like, oh my gosh, hopefully it wasn't, alcohol. Well, I brought this young man in and we're just talking, it's just, hey, Johnny, again, that's a fake name. Johnny, what's going on with the Walmart card? Well, it turned out that Johnny, and he put his head down and he was like, well, ma'am, I don't know how to wash clothes. So I've just been purchasing t-shirts at Walmart. So again, please get them transitioned. They already have enough things to transition when they're coming to college. My best way to explain that is that transition from junior high to high school and how tough that was. That is the transition that you need to work with when they're coming into college and being prepared for that. So if you can, prepare them as much as you possibly can this summer. That even means having them go buy food and see what it's going to cost to keep themselves fed. Next slide, please. This is our contact information. I know it's been put at the bottom, but again, if you are interested, please email us at disability.services@wichita.edu. If you have any questions or if you would like a copy of this presentation, please let me know. Thanks.
Thanks, Isabel, for the information that you've shared. I think it's important. It was important perspective for me to learn that often parents of students with disabilities may be told that you cannot have accommodations or there are no accommodations in college, when that in fact is not correct. So
Yes.
I know just through some of our previous conversations, I was surprised to learn that. So I always try to make a conscious effort to remember when I'm talking with parents that there are accommodations. If your student was, on a IEP or 504 plan in the past, make sure you're asking about that and make sure you connect. Just based on, there's a lot of information and misinformation about what colleges offer for free and not for free. So all of your services are also free, right?
Yes.
To students, which is another big plus. So that's another thing that I appreciate. As Isabel mentioned, her office and our office in regard to success coaching work pretty closely together. Oftentimes, if a student comes in and has, say, oh, I didn't do so well on my test, or, through those conversations, then the coach knows kind of what to listen for and then can ask students, have you ever, received accommodations or have you ever been on any educational plans before? And then the student can disclose that or not, up to the student. And oftentimes then the first group that we're, reaching out to is disability services to say, you got to get in contact with them because the services they're able to offer are great. So our offices do work together. We talk about that holistic support and that wraparound service support and the coordination of care and things on our campus. And we appreciate the partnership we have with your office. So Alicia, did you want to chime in?
No, I mean, you hit pretty much everything that I was going to say. Isabel is fairly new with the university. She's going on her second year, correct, Isabel? And it's been a huge, I am proud of the work that her and her team are doing. Very intentional of making sure that they are working with the student, not only for the student, and making sure that their needs are being met, and really working to help them just be acclimated with campus and to have a regular college experience. And so I can't thank her and her team enough, because it's the closed door conversations, it's the kudos, it's the Kleenexes, it's everything in between that helps our students get to the finish line. And so it's great. And I think the important thing is that within disability services, we have a team of individuals that meet frequently with our students, so similar to our success coaches, and they're asking them, how are your accommodations? Are they working for you in the classroom? Or are they not? And if it's not, guess what? Isabel is a version of me, carbon copy times 10, and she's going mama and saying, hey, this isn't something that you get to choose to decide if you will accommodate. This is required. And so it's great just to have someone on our team like Isabel, who is constantly advocating for our students at every level, and making sure that we can get them the support and help that's needed. And that's not just, in and out of the classroom, but even when we look at assisted technologies. I love the fact that Isabel brought something new to campus with the smart pens. Before, we had our note takers in class with students who are taking handwritten notes. And this is really a different way of us teaching students how to be independent beyond the classroom when they leave and move out into workforce. What type of assistive technology is needed in order to make sure that they can be successful wherever they're at. And so again, just thanks, Isabel. I'm looking to see if we have any questions. We got a lot of thank you. So I'm glad we have some parents joining us. I'm not sure if there's any other questions that are out there. If so, this is the time to put them in the chat box. Kim, any other words of wisdom, or Isabel?
I would just say, hug those kids, love them, still be the mama and the daddy that goes, so what's going on? I've suggested in the past for some of my students. Yes, so we got a person that kicked up here. Yeah, the smart pens, we actually check out the pens for free to the students. And so every semester they just check one out, bring it back in. But if the parents want to purchase one, they can. It's just under smart pens. But again, this is free. So what I'd like is for them to try the pen first before they buy it. So this is a way for them to do it. But yeah, the pens run about around 200. There's specialized notebooks that go along with it. But again, you know how our kids are so techie. Yeah, they want to actually tear the pen apart to see how it works. But there's a camera in there. And it's just, again, it is I've had a lot of parents that have even said, gosh, can I have one of these for my meetings? Because it helps for meetings also. Yeah, right there. And so, yeah, they can be purchased just online. But please, if your student's wanting to use one, have them check it out first to see if it's something that they want.
I was just pop in here to say, you know, that's another thing that I really, or one of the things, many things that I appreciate about Isabel's kind of take on service to students is really, it's one office that really does a good job of helping students advocate for themselves, especially, you know, you were the parent who had to do the advocacy work before. And so making that transition is really tough for you as the parent and the student, because you know your students best, and you know if you know where they're at in terms of ability to ask for help and ask for what they need, and if they're not getting it, to speak up. And really that's how, you know, Isabel and her team will, you know, coach students through that. So and from the very beginning, right? Because by the time they're out of here, they should be able to do that all on their own, you know, look at that employment, find that employment, transition into their career, the workforce or whatnot, if they haven't done anything like that before. So that's something that I think that office does really, really well. I mean, we all try to say, oh, we hold their hands at first and then they learn and on their own and all of that. But this is really, you know, it's really where they've got to learn that skill. And I think the students that she serves are really getting some quality coaching and support. So if you're, you know, you can be confident that they will advocate for your students, but also with you, partner with you to teach your students to be those self-advocates. So that's one of the things that I really, you know, admire most about the work that they do. And really all, I think as I've been here a long time, seeing the amount of students that have, you know, registered with their office over the years has increased exponentially. I think it's no longer, you know, you don't have to be embarrassed about, you know, asking for accommodations. And I think that's getting better overall. You know, folks may be more accepting of that. Hopefully, you know, that has been your experience, but it's definitely, you know, something that's at the forefront of the university as far as the conversations that Isabel and other teams have around accessibility, about universal design, about all of that kind of thing that's happening consistently on our campus. So sorry, just my thoughts and my admiration for the work that you all do.
Thank you. Thank you. We feel the same about your office.
So you can tell there's a lot of love and passion for the work that I think we all do with our students here at Wichita State. And we don't really say my students because they're our students. And we definitely share the love and the load. And it's you know, it's a team effort of partnering with our parents, partnering with our colleagues and faculty to to really ensure our student success. And so We are just excited to have new Shockers joining us in this journey, and look forward to welcoming them to campus in a few short weeks. Before I forget, we do a drawing every time. You all know how we are. I love giving away free stuff, especially if you get to represent Shocker Nation. And so tonight's winner is Sherry Sagmiller. Yay, Sherry! And so Sherry M. Cribs will be getting in contact with you to get your contact information so we can send out my kid just joined me, so that we can send out your gift to you. But other than that, if you have other questions or comments or concerns, especially as your students joined us, feel free to just contact us and let us know. We are here on standby to help you every step of the way. Other than that, we thank you for joining us this evening. As you can see, I have a kid that just hopped in the car. We're headed, yes, shut the door. We're heading off to softball, folks. And so this is, real life in the making. It's us bringing the experts to you. We care about you and making sure that you get the information you needed. And so it doesn't matter how it's delivered. It was delivered, right? And so have a good evening and a great week. And we look forward to connecting with you in a couple weeks. We have Housing and Residence Life that will be joining us. We'll have our feed with accounts receivable. And so just keep checking our website. Again, if you've not yet joined our Shocker Family parent newsletter, you can do all of that online. And that's a way for us to stay connected. If there's also a topic that you're interested in us, having, please let us know. Share that feedback with us, because right now it's Kim and I doing this, partner in crime show here. But we really want to know, what is it that you guys want to learn or know more about? And that way we can continue these throughout the academic year as well. So thanks for joining us and have a great day. Goodbye. God, Marissa.